Well, here we are, folks. Just split second earlier than the 8:30 normal start. We are back for another one of my live stream model builds. This is the 5th live stream model build I've done, and it is episode 5 in the build of this B-24. Now, for those of you who have seen my previous videos, thank you for watching. And this will be a little bit of a repeat because I'm going to introduce this kit for those who have not been following along. So this is the Revell of Germany B-24D. It's a straight repop of the old monogram B-24. And I am doing it up as an RAF Coastal Command B-24 from about 1944. Flown by a Canadian crew. And I'm using quite a bit of aftermarket stuff in it. I've got aviology decals. I've got Belcher Bits radar, Belcher Bits spotlight, Belcher Bits torpedoes and sonar buoys, and I've got the I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head now. I've got the rocket pods, the rocket wings, wild sow resin with the little stub wings on the nose with the rocket. So all of that eventually will be incorporated into the kit. Now, again, if you haven't been following along with this build, it's up to you whether you want to continue watching this or jump out, catch up on all of the live streams. They are all on my YouTube channel here in the live stream playlist. You can jump in there, watch all of them up till today, and then catch up with the next one live and follow along. Or you're more than welcome to hang out here, watch this as I go, and you can go get caught up after the fact, completely up to what you want to do. Also, just want to make a quick note. I do have a members section on the channel. So if you are interested, you can go down, join the members section. You get some free perks out of that, depending on what level you join. Access to some future live streams I'll be doing that will be members only. Some members only videos, early access, as well as some other cool stuff. Like, again, depending on what level you go into. So let's jump into this. I'll get this out of the way. We'll bring over the kit, and we'll take a look at where things stand today. Now, if you remember last time, I was working on the interior of the fuselage, getting it weathered and prepped for assembly. So I've gone ahead off camera, and I've got most of that stuff ready to go. So in here, you have things like your instrument panel with the yokes all weathered up. The cockpit floor is all weathered up. Both sides of the fuselage have been black washed, have been weathered. All the bulkheads are weathered. All the engines are weathered. Everything here is ready to go. Down here in the cup, I've got my pilot seats. Again, all painted up, weathered. I actually flat coated the pilot seats. I used the Tamiya panel line wash on the seats. Leaves it glossy. So I flat coated that while I was doing the other stuff to get that ready. I've also gone ahead and a couple of other little things. Some of the internal panels here, the ammo boxes for the waist gunners, the bombardier panels, the forward nose gear doors, the hatches where the waist gunners would be, as well as every single one of the windows are already in place. Now, I did that all off camera specifically because now on this video, oh yeah, and there's the other bulkhead that is ready to go. On this live stream, I'm going to start actually assembling all of these parts. I'm going to start gluing these halves into the fuselage, all of these pieces, working on the wings as well. We're going to start gluing the engines into the wings, getting the wings glued together, and hopefully, if I manage my time properly, in about an hour, right around the end of this live stream, I'll start gluing this fuselage together. One last check at the instructions to make sure I didn't forget anything, and we'll start gluing. So on that note, let's get started with some of the sub-assemblies. We'll start with the cockpit itself. I can get the seats and the instrument panel glued in. I'm going to go with my Tamiya cement, the white, the thicker one. A lot of people I've heard complain that this is too thick. The one thing I did, you can switch out these. I'm going to probably make a mess. These little brushes are just stuck into the cap. And I've used the small brush from the Tamiya Thin on the Tamiya Thick, and it gives me a lot more control on how much glue I apply and where I apply it. The usual brush, I don't know if I have any more. The usual brush for this is huge. It's about the size of like a standard paintbrush, and it makes applying the glue really difficult. So I just swapped it out to the Tamiya Thin brush. Much, like I said, much more control. Get a little bit of Tamiya white on there. I'll get this glued into place. So I usually, as I've probably mentioned in the past, probably in the first or second video when I did this, I usually use the Tamiya white as like a bonding point. Use a little bit of that on a pin or a hole or whatnot. Get a good solid, mount like that so it at least doesn't fall. And then I'll follow it up with the Tamiya thin. You don't have to use Tamiya. There's quite a few other companies out there that make this glue. I just use Tamiya because it's accessible. There's quite a few of the brands that just aren't available in Canada for various reasons. Or it's just not available at my local hobby shop. So I tend to stick with Tamiya. So there we go. That's now solid. We'll get the seats glued in as well. The other thing you can always do is when you, in a case like this anyways, on these older kits, that's just a little was a little angled. The pin holes, the mounting holes go all the way through. So after you get your parts glued on, you can get to it from behind and add some glue from the bottom side just to make sure you got a nice solid connection. But we'll get these mounted up. And then you have to play the game here of checking the angles, making sure everything looks proper, square, that kind of stuff. You see the seats have quite a bit of movement right now until they bite. So that's where I'll just try to get them to live somewhere nice. And then I can hit them with some Tamiya thin, and that will really lock it in. The other thing I'm going to do is just place it into the side of the fuselage just in order to get a decent feel for where everything should fall. So I'm going to put that guy back into place. This will give me a good reference point of what level is for the plane and for the floor, and I can play with all my angles and stuff with my seats and my instrument panel and make sure everything looks about right. The pilot seat looks good. Oops. Co-pilot seat's a little far forward. Okay, I'm going to hit that with some Tamiya thin. See how that's already starting to bite. The seats don't want to move at all. So that's a good sign. It means that glue has connected the way it needs to and is starting to solidify. So, oh, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and hit all the points with the Tamiya thin. And then I'm just going to leave that. Let that harden a little bit. The other thing you got to be careful of with model glue, with the cement, the way the cement works, I'm sure, again, I've explained this on previous live streams, and many of you out there might know how this works, but basically what you're doing when you're using a model cement is you're melting the plastic. So it softens both sides of the plastic. Normally a plastic is just, you can imagine two pieces of plastic are just doing this to each other. When you add the cement, it softens the plastic and it allows those bonds to start to merge, and then it solidifies, and then it won't come apart again because it's one chain of plastic. The two polymers have combined into one solid polymer. If you play with it too much, you make a weak joint, and even though the glue's dried, that plastic will flop around and won't really bite. So you got to make sure once you're happy with where things are, just leave it. If you play around too much, it's just not going to dry, and you're going to end up with a rubbery connection. And I've had that a lot, especially when I was a kid. You just wanted to jump right into it and get going, and you rush, and you end up with this really wobbly connection, and it's garbage. So you just got to be patient, be careful, do it right. So I'm going to glue these two bulkheads, actually, and probably this guy too. We'll get all these 3 bulkheads glued into this fuselage halve while we're letting the cockpit dry. Then we'll move on to the wings, start working on those. Then we can come back and glue the 2 compartments in, work on the wings, and then once again come back and start gluing this fuselage together. So the other thing you got to be careful with, if you put way too much glue on this, it's going to squeeze out and make a mess. So you'll see I tend to just put little dollops in some key places, just enough that when you put this down, right, it's enough to bite. And especially the other thing I don't do, which I should be doing, is cleaning the joint. Right now, this glue has to melt the paint, work through the layer of paint in order to get a clean plastic on plastic joint. That does cause a slightly weaker joint than if I cleaned it down to bare plastic and then joined it. If it's a significant structural component, I'll do that. For this kind of stuff, good enough is good enough. Just going to carefully get some of this liquid, the extra thin, down into that joint. Again, you want to be careful because this will cause paint to, I can't see with the light. This will cause paint to bubble and run. So you don't want to be smearing it around too much. But I do want to make sure that there's a decent amount up inside the seam here. Now the other thing you have to keep in mind, this kit is older than me. The molding, not the kit. The molding is older than me. So the tolerances are quite a bit looser. This goes back to when kits were made by hand, right? There was no computer-aided design. There was no CNC machines. These masters were literally built by hand. So the tolerances that are in the kit are quite a bit more than what you'd expect from a modern kit. So you got to take that into account when you're adding glue. You're going to have a natural play in the parts that you don't normally see. So if you are building one of these older kits, you know, you have to be very careful of where you're placing them, simply because it's very easy to place it in the wrong place. You know, it's probably only really kits that were coming out post, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, really, that we started to see CNC modeling, you know, CNC models like in modeling. A lot of it was still hand built. You'll see that with a lot of these kits where these interior details, things like these hoses, are the same kit after kit after kit after kit. You know, the B-25, the B-17, the B-24, the B-26, the A-26. They all have the same interior detailing greeblies because they're just cast pieces that they're gluing onto their master. And that's how they did it. So same thing here. I'm going to get some glue down inside the seam. Down under here is a good place. Oh, you know what? I'm using the wrong glue. Down in here is good because it's a part of the kit that you're not going to see very well. So you can get in here and really just soak that seam up. Make sure. See up here, I got good connection. Again, you're going to have some sloppiness in this kit. So you want to make sure you're putting the glue in the areas where you actually have tight fit so that you have a good joint. Once you assemble the two halves of the fuselage, that's going to help with alignment and stop a lot of that movement. But that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Now I got to get this glued in. This is my nose wheel. I have played around with it a little bit. See, that's going to go. Yeah. I have played around with the kit a little bit, and in the sense that it does tell you to glue the nose wheel in place before you assemble everything. But after looking at it, I'm pretty sure I can slip the nose gear in after the fact. So that's what I'm going to do, just so I don't have it hanging out. It makes working on this kit a lot more difficult when you have a gear hanging out like that. it's something that can break off. You know, if you hit it and you knock this out of its spot inside the fuselage after the fuselage is assembled, that's very, very difficult to come back after the fact and get back in. It's hard to mask for when you're doing final paint. So if I can slip, I actually have it. Do I have it here? No. Yes. I still have to paint this. But you can see I can actually assemble this and show you. There we go. So you can actually see that when this is final assembled, you are still able, and this will be solid. Right now it's not glued, so it just spins. But when this is a solid piece, you're going to be able to kind of feed it in sideways and slide it up into here and glue that into its home without too much trouble. So I've made that determination. If I end up having troubles, it'll be my own fault. I won't blame the kid on that one, because I chose to break the construction pattern in this and do it slightly different. I am going to get some extra thin in there. I want this, because this is taking all the weight of the nose gear, I want this to be a nice solid joint. Again, I should have cleaned this down and had it straight plastic on plastic, but that's a lot of work. So just gonna fudge it. Should be good enough. Should be good enough. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna get a huge dollop of this down in here. There we go. Let that soak. Really make sure that that's gonna bond nicely. Pressure is also a good help. Just a slight pressure, again, pushing that soft plastic together, getting a good bond. Doesn't hurt. Just be careful you don't push too hard and break something or knock it out of alignment. But okay, well, while all of this is going ahead and drying up, let's jump to the wings. Wings. So I need bottom halves. I have my engines. I also need, can I find I think they're in here. One thing I usually forget when I'm building these is I forget to put these. Those are what the props will connect to. And I always, in my rush to build, I slam the engines together, and then I realize after the fact that I never installed those little prop, I don't know what you want to call them, not bearings, but prop shafts, I guess. And then I'm stuck at the end trying to like glue the propeller onto the flat part of the engine, and it's a mess. So this time I remembered. So put a little bit of glue around the collar. Now this is also nice on the back side because you're going to have plastic on plastic connection, so it'll be nice and solid. And also that little nubbin that sticks out, I don't know if you can see that. There's just a little nubbin that sticks out the back of the engine here. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see. So when you push that prop shaft through, there's just this little tiny nubbin that sticks out the back of the engine, and that is what pushes against this post right here and aligns the engine. So by doing that and putting that, if you didn't put that post in, there's a good chance that your engine wouldn't actually sit square. It'll fall back and sit on an angle, and that's putting some pressure on the back of that prop shaft to make sure everything stays in alignment nicely. So it's all, like I said, I have a habit of skipping that, and I usually pay for it in the long run. So it's always good to make sure you stay ahead of things like that. And that's one of the reasons why, as I said before, you know, make sure you read your instructions before you get too far. Because again, I come down here and, you know, oh yeah, I'm gonna put that together, and then you do it, and then you realize after the fact, you know, oops, if I had just taken that 30 seconds to look at the instructions, I would have realized I needed to do one little thing before I glued the halves together, and then I'm stuck fighting it, trying to go in after the fact and fix my mistakes. So we'll get these glued, we'll get the instructions out, we'll take a quick look at the wings, make sure there's nothing I'm missing, and we'll start getting these engines glued into place and getting ready to assemble the wings. And then we'll jump back to the fuselage. As always, I do have my chat going up over here beside me. So if anybody does have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever, feel free to dump them down in the chat there. I'll try my best to keep looking over and answering on the fly as I can. I might not be typing the answers, but I will definitely answer as much as I can as we go here. So don't hesitate to pop in a message if you do have a question or whatnot. Make sure these are mounted in here properly. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, let's grab the instructions. And as I said, let's just make sure I'm not skipping any steps here. So we are not putting the bomb sight in, so I can skip that one completely. But that's all done. Windows are done. Windows are done. No bombs. No bombs. Bomb bay's been modified. Waist gunner. Waist gunner. Rear waist gunner hatch. Rear assembly is done. That gets glued in. Doors are done. Windows done. Hat's done. Doors done. We're gluing that in now. That I'm doing after. Bulkheads glued, and then fuselage. So there we go. And then even here with the wings, all I got to do is, it says not to assemble. Oh, and look, it actually says to cut the back of that off. See? Look at that. I would have completely mixed that up if I had yeah. If I had not looked at these instructions, I would have mixed up those engines. So the back of those have to be cut down. Those little nubs have to come off a little bit. So I'm just going to use just going to wing it. Go about 1.5 mil. It also says not to glue the prop shafts. That's also if you choose to want your props to spin. I don't really care if my props spin or not. That's not why I build the models. So I usually glue my props solid. Personal choice. If you want to build yours and have the prop spinning, by all means. So let's get some glue down inside of here. And we'll start getting these engines glued in. So the one thing you do have to notice on the bottom half, there are these three little rectangles. And there's nothing on the top half of the engine. Or the cowling, I should say. And on the engine itself, you'll see on the bottom, there's these little tiny ridges. And there's nothing on the top, and that's what fits into those holes and clock your engines into its proper orientation. So if you are building one of these on the side, make sure you do get that correct. The engine does have an orientation, and you want to make sure that you get that in there. And you'll see when you get it in there, there's a should be, there it goes. There's a nice positive. There's a nice positive location in there. Now is your time when you want to make sure your engines are straight. Again, you don't want to have any type of lean to your engines, because that's just going to magnify out to your prop, and you're going to have a weird angle to your prop. So age of the kit plays a factor on this. It doesn't have the greatest, you know, a modern kit would have a significantly more of a positive location system designed into it. So it wouldn't be as floppy as this. Like there's, you know, that's a pretty floppy installation, but that's just the age of the kit, right? That's just how things were. So you got to work around it. Take your time. Make sure you're getting your engines as lined up as possible. So I'm actually going to just fit the upper half here. Make sure that that looks. There we go. See? Once you get them lined up nice, they fall right into place. Due to the fact that there is a whole lot of paint in there, those are going to take a while to really dry in the right orientation. So I'll have to come back to them later. Just make sure that they don't flop around in there. And like I said, I purposely put a heavy coat of aluminum paint in here. Plus the engines themselves have been painted with steel. So for the cement to burn its way through all that paint on both sides down to a positive plastic on plastic connection, it's going to take some time. And just while we're at it, if there is anybody out there who did miss the intro, this is the Revell of Germany 1/48 scale B-24D. I'm building it up here in a Coastal Command scheme. So this is my 5th live stream in the series, and this one will be focused specifically on getting the fuselage and these wings starting to get glued together, so that we can have some progress. I'm doing about, I don't know, 50-50. Half the build is being done live on these live builds. The other half is being done in the background, but I'm purposely doing them in a way that I can hit the milestones on the live streams and then just do all the busy work in the background. So you don't sit here and stare at me, sanding the seams for 2 hours on a live build. I do all that off the camera, and you can just watch me do the fun stuff. So, okay, I'm going to clamp yes. So I'm just going to clamp these together just so they don't go anywhere. I'm going to stick these. That's looking really good, to be honest. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, I want to stick these over here, back in the box, get them out of my way for a little bit. And we're going to jump back on this fuselage and get some more of these internal parts glued together. So, check on these. Oh yeah, that's like already, that's only been what, 10 minutes? That's got a nice solid joint. Even this guy, she's a bit rubbery up here, but once I get the other side glued in, that will go away. Although it will be hard to, although the good news is the way the nose gear is designed, it pushes back, and it'll push back against that big lip and really push it in tight, and I'll just completely soak the back side of that in the white glue when I assemble it, just to make sure I have a nice strong bond once it's squeezed together. Yeah, sorry, I'm just checking the chat. It looks like somebody might have chat something, but I don't see it. Oh yeah, look at that there. Rubber Ducky. Thank you, Rubber Ducky. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I'm going to keep going away at this, and let's look at the front. Let's get this front half glued in first, and then I'll get the back half glued in after. So, again, it's not going to be perfect because of the tolerances, the loose tolerances on these older kits. Some, not a lot. Some of these seams that I'm gluing won't actually touch the side of the fuselage, but it is what it is. I'm just going to put glue on all of it, get it in place, and then hit it with some liquid glue where I can see that I have a tight bond between the two halves. The other thing, I don't know how much of this you can see. Unfortunately, it is a bit of a darker paint scheme. Try to get some more light on the situation here. The darker green makes it harder for you guys to see what's going on, on the video. But ooh, okay. Okay, where does that? There's pegs. You can kind of see back here. There's these pegs that all of the pieces are supposed to line up on and clip into and align. Again, there are some pretty loose tolerances to everything, so you're kind of doing your best to make it all fit. Like this one here is not very happy, and I'm trying to figure out why. There we go. That's why. Okay. So now I'm going to use the extra thin, and I'm going to go along and I'm going to hit everywhere I can see that I have really, really tight connection between any two parts. So down in here where the floor meets the one of the pegs, back here where the floor meets the bulkhead, I've got some good pressure. Same up at this seam right here. There's some really good pressure between the two parts. That will connect nice and tight. Down in this corner here, I can see I've got some decent connection between it. The good news with this extra thin, it's extra thin. It's basically like water. So as soon as you get it anywhere near a seam, it just capillaries and shoots up all the seams. And you don't have to touch every point. You just have to touch one area, and it'll just flow all along that seam and make sure that it's getting really, really good contact against everything. There's a pin underneath here where I can see it's got some really good contact, so I'll soak that. Up here, this front piece is kind of floating. It doesn't touch anything. I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to worry about that. I feel like that's supposed to be underneath. I don't know why. Yeah, it was supposed to be underneath. Okay. See, I had the pins in the wrong place. But still, that's a good good solid connection on a bunch of that. I'm going to get the back side of this instrument panel. It seems to have some good contact on the side of the fuselage there, so that should help. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with all of that. Okay, let's get this other rear one in. This one, I've never really liked the way it fits. I've test fit this one a whole bunch of times, and it never really seems to want to squeeze in here and fit properly. That's about as close as I can get it, but it still fits really, really weird. I don't like the way this is designed, but I don't really have a choice because I can't redesign the kit. So I'm just going to put some glue along the edge of this. Try to make sure that anything that's going to touch the side of that fuselage will get a nice, good glue joint. And then I'm just going to completely soak down this little pocket where that locating pin is supposed to sit. Just hope that it's enough to hold this in place. We'll see. It never wants to sit flat. It always tries to pop out, and I really, really, really do not like this design at all. It does give me some nice positive location back here. I can get some liquid glue in there. I think I can maybe... No, I can't shift this forward at all. That's as far as it goes. It doesn't seem to want to fit properly back here. It is what it is. But yeah, that's about that, actually, I think. I'm not going to put this together completely because I still have some final work to do on it, but just to see how it all wants to kind of look. Yeah. I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that. Okay, so once again, what time are we at here, by the way? 21:04. Okay, so we've still got about 25 minutes. So let's push this to the side again. Let's let all of that bite and dry. And we'll cycle back to one of the wings. I have 2 of these clamps that I can use, and I have a couple of these clamps that I might be able to use. So let's start gluing a wing together. Oh, and you know what I can do as well? Just as I commented about how I like to be impatient and jump ahead in things, let's get the cowling fronts in place and see what it's going to look like with the cowling fronts. So I think these are... So there, you can definitely see how well those engines look in there. They look great. Again, for a kit that's older than I am, I'll take that detail. That's awesome. Being able to look down inside those engines and seeing all that detail, super, super happy with that. A lot of seam work to go, obviously. That's going to be a future video and a future me problem. But let's get some glue on this. Another point I want to make is when you are going to glue 2 surfaces, most of the kits will have a side that have the pins and the side that has the holes. It's usually easier and better to put the glue on the side that has the holes, because the glue will sit down inside the hole and the pin will go in. If you put the glue on the pin, you know, you're kind of losing a bunch around the pin. It's not getting good connection. Same thing along here. I'm not too worried about the seam because I can get liquid glue in there. I'm more worried about corners. If I can get the kit to bite in the corners, then the rest of it, the seam, I can hit with liquid glue down the road, and that's not a problem. I'm also only going to do the front half of the wing. I'm not going to put any glue on the back half of the wing because I can hit that later with some liquid glue. Like I said, I'm just going to put lots down inside the little holes, and then along the line just dab once in a while, just so that the plastic has a place to bite and grab. And then once it's got a nice seam, I'll hit it with the liquid glue. It'll capillary its way down, and you'll have a really, really solid, nice joint. So let's see if I can do this without absolutely... Oh, that was significantly easier than I expected it to be. So I'm going to use these ratcheting clamps on the engine cowlings. Because there's the engine in there. Oh, I never did? I should be fine. I never hit the back of the engines with liquid glue, but there's enough. Oh, there's a lot of play in that, though. Yeah, should be fine. Anyways. I want to get a clamp on these nacelles. Make sure there's some nice tension between the upper and lower half of the nacelles. That's going to be there's going to be a lot of work going into these nacelles. A lot of sanding and whatnot and pressure down the road. I'll be putting quite a bit of force on those seams when I clean them up. I want to make sure that they're going to have a nice solid connection. So you want the pressure there. These, I'm just going to put somewhere back mid-cord so that they don't slide off the front. And you can see just that little bit of glue I put on, by putting it in those strategic places as I work my way down and squeeze, it's biting, it's holding. You're getting a little bit of like puckering along the seam. You've also got springiness in the plastic. That will disappear as you work your way down with the liquid glue. And again, don't worry about this trailing edge. That trailing edge will be dealt with on another round. So I'm just going to come in here and start hitting the seams with some liquid glue. And you can watch the liquid glue as it capillaries down the seam. You don't want to put your finger on the seam. Obviously, you're going to get your finger covered in glue, and then you'll get little gluey fingerprints all over the surface of your model. So you just want to go along like I'm doing here. Just bit by bit. Think of it as like welding. You know, when you're watching somebody weld a piece of metal, they're not doing the entire stretch in one shot. They're slowly working their way down bit by bit. Get the pressure. Get that plastic to bond. And then you can move down a little farther. And you'll be able to see it as you squeeze that plastic like I'm doing with my fingernails on the edge. You can see the kind of the plastic bubbling out slightly. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, you're going to get a little bit of a ridge down that leading edge, but you can sand that off. And it's much better to have a teeny little tiny plastic ridge from glue than it is to have to come back with putty after the fact and sand it and make even more of a mess. You're wasting more time and more money if you have to putty and sand than if you just get a really nice solid joint in the first place and just touch that up after. All right, so all of that's looking good. I'm going to work my way down the center section. There you go. Same thing. Get some pressure in there. You can watch you can hear it even. A little bit of a suction-y sound as you squeeze and get that plastic to bond. This is a good time. If I had any ready, I could get some masking tape in there. You don't want to run the liquid glue when you have masking tape. If you have a piece of masking tape across that and you hit that liquid glue, it's going to hit that masking tape and it's just going to travel anywhere that masking tape is and capillary along the masking tape. That is not a fun situation to be in. But once you're doing what I'm doing and you have that liquid glue in the seam and it's starting to bite and you just want to keep some pressure on it, now you can run a piece of masking tape over that seam to hold it and you shouldn't get any capillary action. I'm not saying it won't happen. There's always a chance. But it's a lot less likely if you allow it to start to bite and evaporate off and then go along. The other thing with the liquid glue, especially when you're doing a seam like this, very rarely are you going to put too much. You know, add the glue, let it do its work. Another good example is this butt end of the wing. I can get the glue up inside that and let it really get in there and work from the back side in. Same here where I've got the clamp is covering that seam. I'm going to get some liquid glue in there. I didn't put any glue on there yet. But if I get liquid glue up in there, lots and lots of it, just flood it completely. That's a part I never have to worry about that seam. If it looks like a dog's breakfast, it doesn't matter. I'm never going to have to worry about it. But I'm going to be 100% sure that that seam is going to be nice and strong and will never pop. Now I'm just going to go along checking these sides of these engines. See that side of the engine, I can squeeze a little bit and get some glue, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to get some glue in here. Nope, need just a little bit more on that brush. There we go. All along the seam now, make sure it's got lots of glue in there. Keep that pressure on while I'm squeezing it. Of course, I'm using my bad wrist for this. My left hand has been acting up for about a month, so not getting quite as much tension on this as I would have liked, but it is what it is. And there we go. I'm just gonna get that clamp back on. I'm gonna clamp it. Oh, see, it still doesn't really want to. I might just have to hold this. He doesn't want to squeeze in the middle. I got to kind of squeeze on both sides in order to get this to hold. I mean, the other side of it is this is something I can come back and do later if it doesn't really want to lock properly right now and bite the way I want it to. I can come back later and deal with this when I have a bit more free time. I'm trying to not spend, you know... Doing this on a live stream isn't always the best for exactly that reason. You don't want to see me sit here for 20 minutes holding a nacelle shut. But if I'm doing this on my own, I will gladly put something on YouTube and just sit here for 20 minutes manually squeezing the seam together until it holds enough that I can clamp it. Okay, I think we're about there with this one. A little bit of a step on that side. Not the happiest with that. Again, there's a ton of aluminum paint in there, the Revell aluminum, so it doesn't really want to, the glue's going to have to fight to get through all of that paint to get a good bite, so I think I'm just going to leave that. It's going to sit for who knows how long, at least 24 hours probably. Just going to clamp this wingtip for just because I can. What are we looking at for time? 21:15. So you know what? Let's start working on the fuselage. Let's get this fuselage glued together. And one more check at the instructions to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then yeah, we'll wrap this video up with me going through the fuselage. Okay, cockpit section. Norden's not going in place. Bench is there. Instrument panel, yes, yes, yes. Seats are in, sure, yep. Every window I've installed. Every window I've installed. Not doing bombs. All bomb bay, which I've modified. That's in place. Modified, that's in place. Those are in place. That's in place. Yep, just did that. I've got all that installed. I've got that installed. I've just done that. Nose wheel I'm gluing in later, but the bulkhead I've glued in. That bulkhead's glued in. And there we go, folks. Gluing the fuselage together. So let's do that. Now, doing the fuselage is very similar to doing the wings in the sense that you don't want to do every seam all at once. It's a quick way to warp your fuselage and get things out of place. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make sure this guy has, oh yeah, look at that. Oh yeah, it's not going anywhere. Okay, everything here seems to have, yeah, I like that. Yeah, liquid cement is, I don't know how we ever built models before we had liquid cement. So I'm going to, I think I'm going to start down here at the bottom. Which seems counterproductive because usually whatever seam you start on will be the nicest. If I start here and glue here, this seam will look amazing. And as I travel down, you might get some mismatching, you know, especially if the fuselages are slightly different lengths. You get some mismatches down here. And then on the bottom is where you're going to have all your garbage seams if there's any mismatching. Or if you're, you know, you're not perfectly oval and one side gets squished and you have a little bit of a squeeze out on a seam. Well, if that seam's on the bottom, no one's going to notice. But I'm going to start on the bottom. And the main reason I want to start on the bottom is, A, I got to deal with all the modifications I did down here, and I'd rather make sure that's dealt with first rather than last. And I also have that nose wheel bulkhead that I want to make sure is super, super strong. So it doesn't make me any sense to put glue down here if I'm going to start up here. So I'm going to start here, and as I said, I'm going to put a bunch of glue. And this is one of the key things to just building models, is just order of operations. Making sure you're doing things in the right order so that you don't box yourself in or paint yourself into a corner, as they say. Like I said, I'm just going to completely soak this corner. It is just swimming in liquid glue. But then when it goes together, that bulkhead will have something to bite and fit into. Now, the other thing, if you are building this on your own, if you're using this as a reference to build, be aware, especially if you haven't watched my earlier videos, I've modified this Bombay area. It's been completely changed from how it would be normally in the kit. So it's going to look different, and it means I have to assemble this differently. And that's one of the reasons why I want to start down here, because I kind of have to, instead of having the Bombays halved and halved inside the fuselage, I have it all mounted to one side, and I have to make sure everything just kind of gently pops into place like that. But what it means is at the end, it's going to look a lot more realistic than you normally would get out of a monogram kit. Hence why I made the modifications. that's not too bad. A couple of little things I don't like, but just looking around at the seams and how all the bulkheads line, but you know what? I can live with it. So that front nose wheel bulkhead was the one I was worried about, so I need to make sure that it is somewhat straight. It's looking pretty good. Let's get some liquid glue down these seams. I just have to pray, cross my fingers and toes, and sacrifice a model to the model gods that I did all my math right and that nose wheel will actually still slip into place, because there's always a chance that I made a mistake and that nose wheel will not go into place after the fact, and I'm going to be stuck without a nose wheel. Chances one takes. I mean, I can probably figure it out right now. It wouldn't be too hard for me to... Let's see if that's going to go in. That's going to go in like that. So I should be... Oh, yeah. See? Look at that. I can glue that in right now if I wanted to. Oh, yeah. No issues at all. Perfect. Okay. So I'm just going to work my way down with some liquid glue again. I have a ton of aluminum paint down in this section, so it's not going to easily glue or cement or bond or whatever you want to use. I'm going to have to really squeeze. There's also some changes I did in here where all of that has to be glued together. Normally, as I said earlier, the bombays would be glued into each half and would squeeze, but because I added the roof and I added some of this extra structure in here, modified the Bombay so that it was all mounted to one half of the fuselage. And now I got to go back and make sure everything is positively glued into place as much as possible. I mean, it's going to be fun too. There's some sinkholes I've noticed here on this side of the fuselage, back here especially too. That's going to take quite a bit of puttying and sanding, and then cleaning up the paint and making sure I don't overspray up into the Bombay. So there'll be some creative masking down the road on this to make sure it all lines up. I can also see that seam doesn't quite line up perfectly, but again, it is what it is. Like bulkhead, for example, now that it's bonded to one side of the fuselage, doesn't really touch the other side of the fuselage. So I'm going to have to do quite a bit of touch up in here somehow and hide some of these crimes down the road, but it is what it is. I could probably get in there later. Once I get some of the seams glued, I can get in there and clamp, get some positive touching on the two sides of the bulkhead and get the liquid glue in there and really lock things down, but I'll deal with that later. I'm just going to glue all the way back to this seam here. Make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And then that's about all I'm going to do on this now. And like I said, the big thing is you don't want to get gluing too far down until you know you've got a good bond farther up. So yeah, this will also take a little bit of playing around with. It's not that bad, to be perfectly honest. Everything's right where it needs to be back there, so I'm pretty happy. I've never been able to get this together so just noticing some of the comments here. So this was Jet Legs Air Show and Adventures. No, this isn't RC. This is a static build. I'm doing a 1/48 scale B-24. So this is the Revell of Germany 1/48 scale B-24 that I'm building up as a coastal command bird. So static aircraft just sitting on my shelf with the other 100 or so models that I have behind me. So yes, hopefully you're still around there, Jet Legs. I apologize if I didn't get to your comment soon enough. So yeah, I'm about ready to, I might get some masking tape. You know, that's bonded quite nicely. I don't think I have to masking tape anything. But I think I will, just to hold it all together and make sure I don't have any too much movement. It looks really good. Again, I might have commented in the earlier one. I've built one of these, the J model, the one that had the nose turret. I built one when I was probably my daughter's age. 9 or 10 years old. I built one of these. And it went together horribly. I brush painted it silver, and I couldn't get the wings to fit together properly. And I always hated it. I never bought one of these simply because of that problem. But I realize now it's got to do with the way that the wings join. So we'll see that in a future video. Sorry, some more comments here. I've noticed Jetlegs is perfect. Hey, thanks Jetlegs. Appreciate the subscribe. And yeah, I'm a plane guy too, as I'm sure you can tell. Yeah, been building models since I was about 5 or 6 years old. So we're talking probably close to well over 30 years. I've been building models and slowly gotten better at it as I gotten older. And yeah, I work in the aviation industry. I'm an air show guy. I'm a model guy, airplane history, all that fun stuff. So thank you for the subscribe. Hopefully you enjoy the content here on the channel. What are we looking at for time-wise? 21:26. We're pretty much bang on the 1 hour mark, which is about what I want to keep these live builds at. So what I think I'm going to do at this point is wrap it up. Let what I've done already harden and dry and solidify up. And I'll probably do a bunch more off camera. So my plan... Now, again, if there's anyone out there who thinks I should do something slightly different, by all means, send me a comment, all that fun stuff. I think I'm going to finish gluing the fuselage together, finish gluing the wings together, get all that done off camera. And then the next live stream, we'll be working on seams. So, yeah. Nice. Went to an air show last week. Oh, cool. What air show did you go to last week? I'm trying to think of what air shows were happening. I mean, there was Oshkosh. I think Milwaukee had a show, if memory serves. Yeah. Yeah, I think Milwaukee had an air show. Milwaukee... No, anyways. So there was another show happening near Oshkosh around the same time as Oshkosh. But yeah, man, air shows, that's my thing. I go a few times a year. A couple of different shows that I'm a regular at. AirVenture. Oh, I'm jealous now. I was there once in 2009. I haven't been back. Yeah, air show, man. I was there in 2009 for the 100th anniversary of Powered Flight in Canada. Went down to the local museum, got to spend the whole week on Aeroshell Square as a performer. Didn't actually fly in the show. I was just talking up the public about the airplanes, but I've been wanting to go back since, and it's just never worked out. But it's definitely, I need to get back to Oshkosh at some point in my life. So yeah, that's about it. I'm going to wrap this up. For all of you out there who are watching, thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it all. Everyone's little support makes this channel grow, and all that other fun stuff. So yeah, I'm going to do a bunch of work off camera, and hopefully about a month from now we'll come back for another live stream, and you'll be able to see all of this fully glued together and start working on seam work, my fun and the funnest part of a model build. So yeah, wrapping it up. Thank you all. We'll see you all next time. Enjoy it.